Hello, everybody. It is Thursday, the 31st of August. I want to talk about, these entities that people see that have no solid body, the light beings out there, and really put a different interpretation, because the interpretation at the moment seems to be that we are in the lesser state and they know it all. Yeah? And I want to give you a different way of looking at that, because there definitely is a different way of looking at that. And now, the way into this altered state of consciousness where you meet those beings is the denial of self. And that was the way of Jesus, to go to the kingdom of God, which is not of this world, through denial of self, through detaching from the knowledge of self. Now, different ways. One is by weakening the body, through starvation or fasting, which is a nicer word for it, drugs, or a near-death experience. And that is something I want to talk about right now, a near-death experience and what happened there, which is, again, it was described to me, oh, how wonderful. She went to this place and there were thousands of others and she knew them and she was connected to them, and how great that was. Yeah? Now, if I tell you the story that this woman told, so her vehicle that she was in hit a landmine, and she was catapulted out of her body. Her consciousness was catapulted out of her body, and she met these other beings, and what happened next is incredible, because she felt completely connected to them. She knew them, they were a oneness. And then these beings persuaded her to go back, but before she did, they decided to disable her body. So they put shrapnel into her head. She lost the use of one of her eyes. Her arm was detached, and other things. And she saw them doing that. And she was in full agreement, but not only was she in full agreement with it, she thought it was hilarious. She said it was really funny. We were laughing and joking as we were disabling my body. And I'm thinking, what? Yeah? And of course, she then went back to her body, and she's now living with the outcome of what was done in a disabled body. And everybody, from those that told, that were talking to me about that story, they said how wonderful it was that they were all together and knew each other, and the wonderful togetherness. But what they were doing out of that wonderful togetherness, I would think questionable. And as the book says, you know them by their fruit. Now this woman is now living the fruits of what was done in the physical world. Now, as I said, you get there through denial of self, through detachment of your physical being, from your physical being. Now let me say something before that, and that is, when I heard this story, the first thing that came to my mind that I likened that onto was watching my children playing Sims. Like, you take the character and you burn it down in a house, or you drown it in a pool, and it doesn't matter. It's not real. And that is just the feeling I got, like they were children playing Sims. Yeah? Let's see what we can do here. And you go back and you do that. And she came into agreement. Now, why did she come into agreement? Yeah? If she were in this world, to be quite honest, if you are in this world and somebody comes up to you and said, I have got a great idea, we put a big piece of shrapnel into your head and we disable one of your eyes. And I think we're going to cut up one of your arms. Will you come into agreement with that? I would say you probably wouldn't. You wouldn't think that. You most certainly would not think it was, the greatest joke ever. That is because here you are on a different level of knowing. You experience the outcome of actions. That is a different level of knowing. They don't have that knowledge of the experience. And in a way, they are as children in this world. That is why we stop them touching stuff that will hurt them, because they do not yet have the knowledge of experience. And we're kind of trying to prevent them from getting it in that way. We're trying to tell them out of our experience. They don't always listen. Sometimes they have to experience it themselves in order to really know. But that is what this is. And I would say it is the greater level of knowing. Having to experience the outcome of your actions is difficult at times. But it still leads to the greater knowing and understanding. It's a hard school. But yes, it is the greater level of knowledge to me. Now, I think the greatest problem at the moment is that people do not make the distinction between the field itself, out of which everything is created, and the parts that are created. And they are separate from each other, literally separate from each other. When people describe the feeling of love, or the light, and the intensity of it, again, you're out there, you're no longer attached to the experience of your body. But they cannot describe it. That's what everybody says. It's indescribable. And that is exactly what it says in the old text. It cannot be known. If you could describe it, or if you knew it, you would have words to describe it. And you don't. So it cannot be known. The only way it can be known is in its separate possibilities, and that is then entities. Once something becomes a possibility that was contained in that field, it becomes a separate entity. And those are separate entities. And in that way, they are no different from us. They are not in a solid reality, but they are still separate entities, and they have their own desires and intentions. And here's the next thing, and that is those ones that go about, we must get out of Maya. Into a higher state. Maya being the creative force of God. The only thing that the field creates in the beginning is a separate entity, a separate possibility that is contained within itself. But then Maya is with that entity. It has got the creative force to create outcomes out of what it is itself. So if you say and we have it in this world. That is what Jesus showed before he went off on, get out of the body and join one of them. he had that force in this world. We are connected in this world, and the force of Maya can work through us, change things in this world. We are not separated from that. Nor are they. They are still Maya. If you listen to that story, what happened, they had an intention, they had a desire that was highly questionable, I would think. And they had the creative force to do it. So, no, you go there, you're not out of Maya. You're still in Maya. Anything that is an entity is Maya. Doesn't matter whether it's solid or not solid. That kingdom in the book, in the Bible, is a form of Maya. They have an intention. Again, they are together in an intention to subdue the nature of worlds and have dominion over them. That's still Maya. You're not gotten out. The only way you could get out of Maya completely is if you go to that place where nothing knows and nothing is known, where nothing observes and nothing is observed. But then you no longer exist. That's the only way to get out of Maya, is don't know yourself at all, and that is the end of existence of a consciousness. That's where consciousness dies. There may still be knowledge that exists in the field that can then be used by others. It becomes open source again or something like that. But that's the only way out. Now, one thing I think is when she detached from the knowledge of self, and here we go from the knowledge of self, from the knowledge of experience of self, and we should not do to others which we have experienced as bad, stuff like that. We are not out of Maya. We can, and that is something we really need to learn, what Jesus did when his energy created outcomes in this world on an energetic level. Because then we would be both body and what they can do there. We would be a complete duality. And we would hopefully act out of experience and not like children playing Sims. It doesn't matter. But if you detach from that knowledge of self and go into another consciousness, because that's what, again, in that story, that's what the woman did. She entered into another consciousness, and she knew that consciousness because she had detached from the other knowing, what was the knowing of self. And then she knew them. She had entered, she had immersed herself into that consciousness and knew it, and was thinking and acting like them. And then, yes, it was suddenly an awful riot to disable a human body, which in the other state, she would not have thought that. It says in the Bible, in those days they will listen to children. And I'm wondering again if that is talking about those that let go of knowledge of self and connect to something else, interact with something else. You are interacting with children that do not have the benefit of knowledge of experience. But you're entering into their consciousness, you're becoming a part of their consciousness, and suddenly you're seeing things their way. But if you have to live in this world, you will know them by their fruit. Because you will live the fruit, you will live the outcome of what was done out there. So really, I say, this is a completely different way of looking at it. It's not they are light beings and they know it all. No, they don't. Even God of the Bible did not know it all. That is why he's gathering knowledge. If he knew it all, he wouldn't have to gather knowledge. They are just consciousness in a different state. And they are very much like you, and we are like them. And the creative force, which is obviously very strong out there, is here, is in us, is emanating from us. Plus we have the benefit of knowledge of experience. So we should do greater things than them. But apparently we're listening to them because they are so enlightened and so great and wonderful. And if the outcome is bad, it doesn't matter. It really does not matter. You know, there's good in it somewhere. You just go deeper into the darkness and you will see it at some point. I really think we do not understand what it is we're in and why we are in this. To gain wisdom through experience. Let's try and do that. Anyway, I leave it at that for today, and I talk to you again soon. Bye.